Chapter 829. But, you guys are getting more and more used to hiding things from me. The previous incident with Cole was decided by the two of you privately, saying that you were afraid that I would spoil the plan due to my impatience. Seeing that it was your first offense, I didn't hold it against you. But this time, you guys are doing the same thing again, hiding something from me even though you guys clearly have something going on. Gu Mingming's tone was very calm, as if she was just stating the facts. But this attitude made Elvis and Leah at a loss of what to do. If she threw a tantrum, they would still have 100 ways to coax her. What they were most afraid of was her not throwing a tantrum. In a relationship, lying is the beginning of a breakdown. You guys will slowly start to have secrets that I don't know, and I will become more and more paranoid. The cycle will repeat until either I break down or you guys break down. The final outcome will always be death. Since that's the case, why don't we cut our losses in time? From now on, I will learn to live independently and not rely on you guys for everything. I'll learn how to ignore your unspeakable secrets and live my own life. Xiaoming. Elvis growled. When Gu Mingming hardened her heart, why would she be afraid of Elvis's expression? Not giving him a chance to interrupt, she continued, but don't worry, just because I still love you guys now, I won't be so heartless to turn you guys into stray beasts. I will always keep the mark on my body, and you guys will still be my partners in name. Elvis held Gu Mingming's waist tightly once again, refusing to let go despite Gu Mingming pushing him. He frowned and said, "If you don't want me, you might as well kill me." Elvis looked down at Gu Mingming's hand that was pushing against his chest. He used a lot of strength, but with Gu Mingming's current abilities, it was not impossible for her to push him away. But to push him away, she had to use enough strength to break at least 2 of his ribs. That pair of fair little hands were hammering and pushing against his chest, but she could not bear to do so. You obviously can't bear to leave me, right? The corners of his lips curled up slightly, his smile carrying a hint of mischief. His blue eyes were filled with mirth as he lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's lips. He allowed her to bite him, allowed her to behave atrociously, but he could not stop her from escaping. The kiss lasted for a long time until Gu Mingming finally stopped throwing a tantrum or resisting. Elvis then slowly released her and used his thumb to wipe his lips. He lowered his head to look at the 2 drops of saliva on his thumb and chuckled. You bit me for half a day, but there is not even a scratch on my skin. You still don't want to admit that your heart aches for me? Yeah, I just can't bear to hurt you guys, so you guys can bully me? Gu Mingming glared at them, feeling a little angry. Elvis's heart ached for her aggrieved look, and he said helplessly, "How could we bear to bully you? It's just that there are some things that will upset you. We will solve them. You just have to be happy." Gu Mingming hung her head and said, "You're still unwilling to tell me even at this stage?" Elvis's heart tightened. He looked at Leah and finally surrendered. "Don't be angry, I'll tell you, all right?" Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and asked, "Do you think I'm throwing a tantrum just because I want to know about this?" Elvis was taken aback, as if he did not understand what Gu Mingming meant. Gu Mingming sighed and shook her head. "Forget it, I don't want to know anymore. You guys go out, I want to rest." Aside from the topic, most of the time a girl throwing a tantrum was not because of the matter itself, but because of the other half's attitude. Unfortunately, most of the time boys would never understand. Chapter 830. Elvis and Leah looked at each other. She was the one who made a big fuss and insisted on knowing. Now that they told her, she said she didn't want to know? Moreover, didn't they already agree to tell her? Why did she still have to chase them out? Gu Mingming looked at the 2 males who stood rooted to the ground. She waved her hands and said, "If you guys aren't leaving, then I'll leave. I'll sleep outside tonight." Xiaoming. Elvis pulled her back and locked her in his arms. "Don't be angry, Leah, and I will listen to you. Today we will guard you at the entrance. Be a good girl and sleep in the cave, all right?" Gu Mingming's face turned red. Gu Mingming flung Elvis away and gestured a please gesture to chase them away. Elvis and Leah knew that Gu Mingming was really angry. They didn't want to make her even angrier. Hence, the 2 partners who were so famous in the beast world stood pitifully at the entrance of the cave. To be able to see Gu Mingming through the entrance, the 2 of them didn't avoid the sun. They let the afternoon sun burn their bodies as they guarded the entrance without moving an inch. Gu Mingming was really heartless. She turned her head and sprawled on the bed to take an afternoon nap. She only showed Elvis and Leah her back view. She didn't even turn her body. After a long while, the 2 of them who were listening carefully at the entrance knew that Gu Mingming had fallen asleep. They then sighed in disappointment and their shoulders slumped down unknowingly. "The last time you chased me out of the cave was after you returned from the beauty pageant in Sauter. You found out that I created opportunities for you during winter. And that time, you didn't stay angry for so long. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's back view and felt a little tormented. He was already used to her nestling in his arms when she slept. The way she slept in a daze always made his heart soften. If he wasn't around, would she fall onto the ground the moment she turned over? She was used to hugging his tail when she slept. Now that her arms were empty, would she not be able to sleep well? Leah smiled bitterly and said, "Yeah, I was envious when I saw you being chased out. At least you had the right to be chased out. But I was forbidden from getting close to you and refused to interact with you. I didn't even have the chance to beg for mercy." Elvis smiled helplessly and said, "Yeah, so you got what you wanted? Does it feel good to be kicked out?" Leah smacked his lips as if savoring it seriously. Then he chuckled and said, "In the past we didn't seem to care much about where we slept. Why are we so obsessed with the cave now? Not being able to enter makes my heart feel empty." Elvis's gaze was deep as he stared at the little person on the bed. "What we are fixated on is not the cave, but the little person throwing a tantrum in the cave." Leah nodded in agreement. "That's right. Once she gets angry, there's nothing we can do." Elvis's gaze contained a gentleness that even he himself could not detect. When his gaze lingered on Gu Mingming, it was filled with happiness. Being kicked out of the house by her was also a kind of happiness. After all, he didn't even have the chance to be expelled in the past. "So, do you really intend to tell her about this?" Lee's brows were still furrowed. That matter, he did not want Mingming to know. Elvis glanced sideways at Leah. "Do you have a better idea?" Chapter 831. Elvis nodded. "I can choose not to say, but I cannot lie. I promised her that I would not lie to her." Leah nodded and did not say anything else. He just turned to the side to start cooking. Elvis stood at the same spot and continued to stare at Gu Mingming silently. That petite body had such a strong attraction that nothing in this world could compare to her in his eyes. Sighing, Elvis shook his head in exasperation. Just like that, she stood at the top of the tree. When Gu Mingming stood up and stretched lazily, it was just a gentle action, but it instantly affected the emotions of the two people standing at the door. "Gu Mingming, I cooked potato and meat paste. Can I bring it in for you to try?" Leah leaned against the door and asked with a fawning expression. Gu Mingming ignored him as if she could not hear him. Leah was not dejected and continued as if he did not notice Gu Mingming ignoring him. "Natalie's body is weak, so this is definitely suitable for her to eat. How about I accompany you to bring it over and you can eat with her there?" Gu Mingming remained silent. Leah looked at Elvis. Elvis sighed and his gaze deepened. Something might have happened in Sauder. This sentence stunned Gu Mingming. She looked up into Elvis's eyes and pursed her thin lips tightly without saying a word. Elvis took a deep breath and continued. "I always knew that the stray beasts had such a standard because they had the support of a mighty figure. But I only found out today that this mighty figure is Cole." Gu Mingming was stunned. The stray beast's backer was Cole? If even Elvis knew about it, it meant that it was not a recent incident? But wasn't Cole the previous leader of Sauder? The leader of the Messenger's tribe was the backer of the stray beasts? Was this a plot of collusion between officials and bandits? Elvis could not bear to see Gu Mingming frown and did not want her to spend too much time pondering over Cole. Hence he continued. "The stray beast's attacks on tribes may seem random, but it is not. They attacked tribes that were against Cole or had obstructed him in certain matters. They can be considered as Cole's secret force that helps him settle some shady matters." Gu Mingming frowned. She recalled that Cole had brought Xianxia somewhere after the dry season, and that he had not appeared for such a long time. Thinking back, the last time she saw him, he seemed to have asked her if the water source was ready and said that Sauder did not lack water. But later on, Gu Mingming dug her own well and did not take Cole's words to heart. But now that he thought about it, Elvis first mentioned that something might have happened to Sauder, then he mentioned that Cole was supporting the stray beasts behind the scenes. Elvis let out a long sigh and looked at Gu Mingming with a determined gaze as if he was telling her, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Peter said that at the beginning of the dry season, Cole came back with a little wolf cub. He felt that the little wolf cub looked similar to me and Cole seemed to treat him very well. He even said, "I can't let my precious son lack water." After that, he brought all the stray beasts of 4th level and above away, leaving only Peter to guard the camp. Gu Mingming took a deep breath. She did not need to guess to know that the wolf pup Cole was carrying was Xianxia. Sauder does not lack water. Chapter 832. Sauder only had Barit and Oakley guarding it. Even if the two of them worked together, they would not be Cole's match. not to mention that Cole had brought along stray beasts of 4th level and above. If Cole used Qixin to threaten them, perhaps Barit and Oakley could only let him do whatever he wanted. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and stood up to walk out. When she passed by Elvis, Elvis grabbed her arm and hugged her. Gu Mingming struggled a little, but Elvis hugged her even tighter. He said in a hoarse voice, "Don't move, let me hug you for a while, just a while." Gu Mingming was stuck to Elvis's words. She had only taken an afternoon nap, but Gu Mingming felt as if she had been away from them for a long time. Elvis's deep and reserved voice resonated from his chest to Gu Mingming's ears. "You are clearly right in front of me, but I still miss you so much. What should I do? I feel like I am sick." Gu Mingming's heart softened, but her expression did not soften. She said coldly, "If you are sick, let Leah treat you." Elvis hooked Gu Mingming's little face and stared into her eyes. "He can treat external injuries, but mental illnesses, medicine is ineffective." Gu Mingming turned her head and pulled her face back. "If you have a mental illness, find someone who understands you to treat it. I think Leah is just the right person. Both of you are so close and have no secrets. You can open your hearts and have a chat. Just treat it as a psychological consultation. Maybe you will recover after the chat." Elvis carried Gu Mingming up. Gu Mingming instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. She wanted to retract her arms when she met his smiling eyes. But how could Elvis let her? A large hand held the back of her head and he kissed her on the lips. They lingered for a long time and were filled with love. "But only you are my medicine. You can treat my illness and take my life." Gu Mingming's heart was clenched. Her entire chest was trembling in response. On the other hand, Elvis had already stood at the entrance of the cave to reflect on himself for an entire afternoon. After hearing Gu Mingming's jealous words, if he still did not know why Gu Mingming was so angry that she chased them out, he could not continue being her first partner. Wiping Gu Mingming's lips that were stung by his kiss, Elvis said dotingly and indulgently, "You are angry that I always hide things from you. I won't hide it from you in the future. Don't be angry, okay?" Gu Mingming pursed her lips and her expression softened a little. But she still pretended to be confused and asked, "Really? Or are you just trying to coax me?" "Everything I say to you is a promise and I won't lie to you." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face, which had turned into a steamed bun from anger. Having just woken up, her skin was tender and soft and the texture was extremely good. "Moreover, I hid these things from you because I was afraid it would affect your mood. If you feel worse because you don't know, isn't that putting the cart before the horse? I won't do it again." Gu Mingming then nodded her head in satisfaction. Then she glanced at Leah coldly at the side. Leah swayed his tail and walked to Gu Mingming's side like a little wife. He placed his arm on Elvis's shoulder and used his long and narrow eyes to act out an affectionate apology. Chapter 833. Gu Mingming also knew that she had made a huge fuss today. In fact, she could have used gentler methods and words to tell them what she thought, but she just couldn't control her temper at the moment. Perhaps it was because of the bloody tragedy that Natalie and Peter had kept from each other. She felt really uneasy, terrified, and at a loss as to what to do. If Elvis and Leah were to keep things from her, would there come a day when these minor details would pile up into a colossal figure that would crush all the trust between them? You wouldn't understand if I didn't say it. This was the initial state of estrangement in a relationship. But now that Elvis and Leah had promised not to keep things from her again, she naturally wouldn't continue to pester them endlessly. After all, her mental age was already over 1,000 years old. There was a limit to how willful she could be. Lowering her head, Gu Mingming twisted her fingers. "My tone wasn't good today. I said many harsh words. I'm sorry." Elvis and Leah each stood on one side and kissed Gu Mingming's face at the same time. The two perfectly handsome faces with completely different styles had the same doting expression on them. Elvis did not say a word while Leah held Gu Mingming's little hand and kissed it. "You know very well that compared to an apology, we prefer to hear your confession." Gu Mingming's face was blushing, looking even more hazy and gentle under the moonlight. She said in a soft tone, "I will never say that I want to leave again. You guys are the most important people to me. I only took an afternoon nap and I already feel so lonely. If you guys really leave, I don't even know who I can cry to." "Silly girl." Elvis tightened his grip on her waist. Looking into her apologetic eyes, he smiled. "Unless I die, I will never leave you." Gu Mingming pressed her forehead against Elvis's. "You won't leave even if I chase you away?" Elvis kissed her on the lips. Then he replied in a low voice, "You are my entire world. Where else can I go?" Gu Mingming didn't say anything else. She just smiled sweetly. Leah brought over a large bowl of potato and meat paste. Can we eat now? Do you want it here or take it to Natalie's and have it with her? Gu Mingming thought for a while and said, let's go eat with Natalie. I will bid farewell to her on the way. You want to go to Sauter? Elvis asked as he carried Gu Mingming towards Natalie's cave. Gu Mingming nodded and said, I'm worried about Barit and Oakley, and Qixin is also here. Elvis stopped in his tracks and looked at her quietly. Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked, what's wrong? Elvis took a deep breath and wanted to suppress the discomfort in his heart, but when he thought about how he promised not to hide anything from her, he swallowed back the words I'm fine, and ground it into a sentence in his throat. Barit is your pursuer, he even confessed to you earlier than Leah. You're so worried about him. Are you thinking of taking him in as our third child? Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment before smiling. Instead of answering, she asked, then I also mentioned Oakley, are we going to accept him as the fourth in our family? Chapter 834. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded by Elvis's words. Why? Elvis stared at Gu Mingming quietly for a long time before asking, you like Oakley? Gu Mingming shook her head without thinking. I don't, but I don't like Barit either. Then why does Barit have the right to challenge me? Elvis said, he went up to the platform of the deity's punishment for you and offered to become your stored food without knowing that you are the messenger of the beast deity. You praised him more than once and you even kissed him before. Gu Mingming could admit to the first few things, but what did he mean by kissing him before? Why did Gu Mingming have no impression of it at all? When did I kiss him before? Elvis's gaze deepened. You did because you kissed him, so he miraculously came back to life, on the platform of the deity's punishment. Leah saw it too. Gu Mingming turned to look at Leah, only to see him nodding his head unwillingly with a conflicted expression. The way he looked at Gu Mingming was not right. Gu Mingming recalled carefully and remembered that there was indeed such a thing. At that time, Barit had fainted due to dehydration. Actually, he could have recovered by feeding him some water, but Gu Mingming tried a few times to no avail. In the end, she had no choice but to use her mouth to feed Barit water, and she only fed him one mouthful before being brought away by Elvis. Gu Mingming facepalmed, sweating. That was not a kiss, I was just saving him. If I didn't feed him some water, he would have been captured by Leah to be skinned and made into a specimen. How scary. Leah, who had been silent all this while, said faintly, if you don't like him, what does his life or death have to do with you? This sour feeling, Gu Mingming did not dare to dwell on the past with these two anymore. In their eyes, as long as Gu Mingming looked at someone, that person would definitely be their love rival. Even for Cole, just because Gu Mingming mentioned his name frequently, the two of them had already imagined all sorts of love-hate plots. As a result, Gu Mingming didn't even dare to scold Cole in front of them in the later stages. I really want to go to Sauter because I am worried, but it's not because I like Barit. It's because he, Oakley and the rest of the snow foxes are now my tribesmen and I have to be responsible for their lives. You can't ignore them when you know they're in danger. Elvis heaved a sigh of relief and did not refute Gu Mingming. He did not want to force Gu Mingming to admit that she liked males other than him and Leah, so he had been anticipating Gu Mingming's rebuttal from the start. Now that she had refuted him, he naturally would not pursue the matter any further. What should he do if she doesn't refute him? They continued walking towards Natalie's side. Chapter 835. Elvis and Leah both laughed. Gu Mingming's words had two meanings. Firstly, it was a promise. In the beast world, the difference in levels was absolute. Elvis was 5th level, Leah was 4th level, and unmated males were at most 3rd level. How could they talk about protecting themselves in the hands of Elvis and Leah, who had been through hundreds of battles? Their chances of escaping were not high, so how could they talk about challenging? This meant that there would not be any new members in the family. Secondly, it was a spur. She was indirectly telling them that she did not wish to see them get hurt. They had to become even stronger and protect themselves no matter what. Only then would they have the right to stand by her side and be her males. I will always listen to Xiao Meng. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's temple. Leah bit Gu Mingming's left ear and rubbed it intimately. As you wish. After a while, Elvis and Leah continued to accompany Gu Mingming to Natalie's cave. But when they were about to reach, the three of them stopped in their tracks with a serious expression. Yes, the beast world did not have the concept of chastity, but Gu Mingming did. I happened to bump into my in-laws eating fish while delivering food. It was so awkward at the cave entrance. Should I turn around and leave? Or should I turn around and leave? It's urgent, I'm waiting online. Gu Mingming jumped down from Elvis's arms and took 2 steps back with a blushing face. She asked Leah to divide a portion of the food into a stone bowl and let Elvis place it at the cave entrance. Elvis did as he was told with a black face. Then he carried Gu Mingming back to the cave where they were temporarily staying. Gu Mingming had slept a lot in the afternoon and was in high spirits now. She could not fall asleep no matter what, so after dinner she dragged Elvis and Leah to discuss the rescue mission at Sauter. When she first heard the news, Gu Mingming wanted to rush over immediately. But after calming down she felt that it was not appropriate to rush over now. Elvis and Leah also felt the same way. The dry season had just started and Cole had already brought his men over. No matter what he wanted to do, he would have already succeeded by now. It was not the best time for them to rush over now. Even though Gu Mingming was the main fighting force, with Qixin in Cole's hands, there was a limit to what she could do. And if she was not careful, she might even be threatened by Cole, causing her teammates to be tied up and be controlled by him. Besides, the stray beasts led by Peter were under Cole's orders. Without Cole's permission, Peter would never have told them this news. Leah boiled water for her to bathe. Although the small lake here was almost dried up, she had not bathed for 2 to 3 days and her body was extremely uncomfortable. Although it was not to the extent of being unbearable, how could Elvis and Leah allow her to suffer? Who cared if other people could drink it or not? All they wanted was for their female to have a comfortable bath. If anyone was dissatisfied, they could try to snatch the bath water from their hands. Chapter 836. I have been very careful along the way and didn't realize that anyone was following me. Carter and Melinda were in the ocean and couldn't have passed this news to Peter. Fei Rue had taken the water route back to St. Nazaire and had neither the time nor the motive to leak the news. But Peter knew that I had obtained the kiss of the ocean and knew that I would take this route back to St. Nazaire. He came at the right time, and, even though he knew that he couldn't snatch anything from me with his abilities, he still came. Leah gently stirred up the hot water and the beast's skin slid across Gu Mingming's smooth shoulders. Crystal clear water droplets flowed down Gu Mingming's shoulder blades, creating a suggestive sound. Lee's gaze was focused as if he was admiring a work of art. The words that came out of his mouth also seemed to be a professional evaluation of this work of art. It was soothing but convincing. I'm afraid this was all part of Cole's plan from the start. Gu Mingming nodded and opened her mouth to catch a grape that Elvis handed over. Oh, so sweet, Gu Mingming sighed in satisfaction. Previously, she had found an excuse to send Elvis away so that she could speak to Natalie alone. She didn't expect Elvis to really pluck the grapes and Gu Mingming was addicted to them the moment she tasted them. Although she didn't request Elvis to pluck them again, but was there a need to say such things? Elvis had such a strong desire for any joyful expression on Gu Mingming's face. He would spare no effort to do anything that could make her happy. Not to mention a few bunches of grapes, even if Gu Mingming wanted the stars in the sky, Elvis would jump on the spot and pluck them for her without a second word. Gu Mingming licked her lips and continued. I think so too. He seems to be purposely luring me back to Sauter. What do you mean? Elvis plucked another grape and fed it to Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming opened her mouth to receive it and the sweet juice filled her mouth. Her teeth were filled with the sweet juice and this sweetness directly brought her a sense of bliss. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes in satisfaction and swallowed the grape. When the dry season started, he told me that Sauter had a well and there was no shortage of water. He asked me if I wanted to go to Sauter to spend the dry season there. Was this considered a bribe? I ignored him then and didn't take it to heart. Wasn't it just a well? We can just dig one ourselves. Elvis nodded with a chuckle, but did not mention that she was the only one in the entire beast world who could make digging a well sound so easy. He did not know what the well meant to the beast world. There were only 2 wells in the entire beast world, one in Sauter and the other in St. Nazaire. It was the fountain of life that the messenger of the beast deity had bestowed upon the messenger's tribe. This was also one of the reasons why every tribe wanted to take possession of the messenger of the beast deity. Food in winter and water source in dry season were enough to make every tribe in the entire beast world go crazy. The item that Gu Mingming shared so easily was the treasure that the previous messenger of the beast deity used to control the beast world. Chapter 837. Is this considered coercion? Gu Mingming chuckled. Should I do as he wishes? What is his motive for making me go to Sauter? Elvis placed the last grape into Gu Mingming's mouth. It should not be coercion but a provocation. Gu Mingming raised her brows and looked at Elvis. Elvis chuckled. Do you still want to eat? Should I help you pluck more? Gu Mingming shook her head. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. Seeing her eating contentedly made him feel better. But at the mention of Cole, a cold glint flashed across Elvis's eyes. It was fleeting and not obvious. Sauter is now a division of St. Nazaire. Cole brought stray beasts to invade. This is a territorial dispute and there is no room for compromise. So it is not a threat and I will not allow you to be forced. Gu Mingming nodded. She was impressed by Elvis's strong stance on the left. My hubby is so manly. This imaginary special effect had been floating around Gu Mingming like a 3D experience. Elvis enjoyed Gu Mingming's adoring gaze very much. The water temperature was no longer high enough. Elvis scooped Gu Mingming out of the stone basin and wrapped her up in a warmed beast skin. Leah moved the bathtub out to deal with it. Then he started a fire in the cave to evaporate all the water from Gu Mingming's bath. This was to prevent her from sleeping uncomfortably at night. Elvis placed Gu Mingming on the bed and rested her head on his thighs. He used a clean beast skin to gently dry her hair. His heart softened at the sight of her flushed face from bathing. Let Leah and I handle the territorial dispute, all right? Gu Mingming nodded. Yeah, I am happy to be free. Actually, when Peter told them this piece of news, Leah immediately realized that this was Cole's entire plan. After all, Leah was all too familiar with Cole's methods. Even if he could not immediately piece together the whole picture, he still had a sharp intuition. And Elvis naturally trusted Leah. That was why the two of them were so obviously hostile towards Peter. There was no other reason. Anyone who helped Cole set up a trap for Gu Mingming was naturally an enemy. It was the same for his biological father. He did not tell Gu Mingming because he did not want her to worry. After all, during this period of time, there seemed to be nothing that could make her happy. They had clearly promised to make her happy, but why was it that after mating with them, Gu Mingming's life was filled with trouble? Elvis and Leah frowned slightly. They even suspected if it was because of their unbearable selves that they had tainted Gu Mingming's originally brilliant life. But even so, they still held onto her hand greedily, not wanting to be abandoned by her. That was why they wanted to solve these troubles in a place where she couldn't see them. But their Mingming didn't like it when they hid things from her. From now on, I won't hide anything from you. Elvis was still drying Gu Mingming's hair gently and seriously. He once again promised what he had promised in the afternoon. I'll tell you about the matter and you'll let me handle it. It feels good to be trusted. Xiaoming, thank you. Gu Mingming chuckled and turned around to look at Elvis. Silly hubby, you are my man. If I don't trust you, who else can I trust? Digression. Babies, today's update has ended. Chapter 838. The next morning, Natalie appeared before Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming was momentarily taken aback, but it didn't last long. Natalie's complexion was already much rosier. She must have eaten regularly these few days, in addition to Peter's meticulous care. Her complexion looked much better than before. Although she was still weak, at least she didn't give off the feeling that she was about to die the next second. Natalie kept sneaking glances at Elvis from the corner of her eye, as if she wanted to speak to him. But Elvis's stay-away expression was too cold. Natalie mustered up her courage several times, but ultimately didn't dare to approach Elvis. Sighing, Natalie shifted her gaze back to Gu Mingming. Peter promised to bring me to find the antidote for Xianxia. Although it will not be easy, I will definitely supervise him in concocting the antidote. Gu Mingming nodded. Gu Mingming tilted her head to look at Peter. An unnatural expression flashed across his face. Clearly, finding the antidote was all nonsense. He was just creating an opportunity to bring Natalie far away from this place and start anew. A world where there would be no misunderstandings or conflicts between the two of them. He just wanted to find a way to stay by Natalie's side, right? But winter is coming after the rainy season. Won't it be too dangerous for you to go out to find the antidote now? Gu Mingming was a little worried. Although Peter was a 5th-level beast and had rich battle experience, even the strongest beast was as insignificant as a grain of sand in the face of nature. How could he overcome the cold winter and the lack of food alone? It really wasn't a wise decision to go out at this time. Natalie's eyes flickered with bitterness as she said, I know. It'll definitely be tough. But I want to quickly concoct the antidote. Only by saving Xianxia can I have the right to say sorry. Natalie's gaze landed on Elvis again. Seeing that he didn't even frown, completely ignoring her and Peter, she would be lying if she said she wasn't disappointed. But after what Elvis had gone through, it was understandable that he wouldn't forgive her. She needed a chance to make up for it. She had to do something for Elvis so that she wouldn't be tormented by the guilt in her heart. Peter was also aware of this. That was why he allowed her to do such ridiculous things. However, even though he was by her side and the so-called antidote was completely up to him, he naturally had a way to make her obediently follow his rhythm and satisfy her desire to make up for it within a safe and controllable range. Gu Mingming did not say anything else. After all, it was someone else's life and they had the right to decide how they wanted to live it. What she could do was to stop when it was appropriate. Otherwise, going too far would be as bad as falling short. That afternoon, Gu Mingming's group and Natalie left the stray beast camp together. They headed towards the place where Peter had rushed out to snatch the kiss of the ocean. Before they parted, Gu Mingming suddenly placed her hand on Elvis's shoulder. She frowned and turned to look at Peter. "You were the one who bit Elvis's shoulder so deeply that his bones could be seen, right?" Peter froze and instinctively turned to look at Natalie. As expected, he met a pair of angry eyes. Chapter 839. Natalie's eyes reddened and tears welled up in her eyes. Her heartache fell on Elvis's shoulder. Even though there were no teeth marks left, it was as if Natalie could see Elvis being bitten until his flesh was a bloody mess. Clenching her fists, Natalie turned and ran off. Peter glared at Gu Mingming, but she just shrugged. "She will run off if I don't chase after her now." Peter shook his fist fiercely, then ran after Natalie without looking back. Gu Mingming crossed her arms as she watched Peter explain and Natalie throw a tantrum. Only when the two of them had completely disappeared from sight did Gu Mingming lean into Elvis's arms. "Let's go back to Saint Nazaire." Elvis didn't say a word. He just carried Gu Mingming steadily towards Saint Nazaire. Leah reached out to poke Gu Mingming's little face. "Why are you smiling like that?" Gu Mingming had been trying to hold in her laughter. But after being exposed by Leah, she couldn't hold it in any longer. Shaking her shoulders, she laughed. "I guess I am the first person in history to matchmake my own in-laws. I should be able to secure the title of a filial daughter-in-law, right?" Leah raised his brows. "I don't understand. Are you trying to matchmake them or break them up?" Gu Mingming leaned against Elvis's shoulder and chuckled. "In this world, there is probably no one who is more sincere to Natalie than Peter. Peter is the best candidate to ensure that Natalie receives the best care. But he bullied my hubby so much in the past. If I let him live too comfortably, I will not be happy." Elvis lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's little head. "So, are you taking revenge for me?" Gu Mingming nodded and admitted it openly. The corners of Elvis's lips curled up. His gaze was always gentle when he met her eyes. Raising his brows, he said, "Based on my character, this level of revenge is too gentle. But, because you are the one who did it, I feel very blessed. Yeah, just take it that I have already taken my revenge. I will not pursue the past." Actually, Gu Mingming didn't mean that. She did not do anything cruel to Del, not because she expected Elvis to forgive her. After all, he had gone overboard and was too cruel in the past. In Gu Mingming's heart, it would not be wrong to kill Peter 100 times over. But she did not do so because she did not want to overstep her boundaries. She wanted to leave the final decision to Elvis. No matter how he wanted to take revenge, she would stand by his side unconditionally and support his decision. And the little prank she was playing now was at most creating some trouble for Peter, taking it as interest. However, if Elvis was willing to give up on revenge because of the sweetness she brought him, it would be the best scenario for her. She did not care what happened to Peter. She cared about Elvis. Forgiving Peter was actually letting Elvis off. The heart was only so big. If it was used to store hatred, then where was the love? As for Elvis, his hatred towards Del had long faded to the point that he could no longer recall it. As a male, especially after having Gu Mingming, Elvis could understand Peter's craziness more and more. Chapter 840. If a word of forgiveness could make Gu Mingming feel at ease, then he would forgive her. Whether it was Peter, Natalie or anyone else, as long as Gu Mingming wanted him to forgive her, then he would forgive her. Although he no longer cared about motherly love, if Gu Mingming felt that he would be happier with Natalie alive, then he would show her happiness. Anyway, he was willing to do anything that could make her happy. Moreover, how could he not be happy when he saw how concerned she was for him? "The journey is very boring. Do you want to chat with the beast deity?" Elvis suggested. Gu Mingming shook her head. "I want to accompany all of you." How could Elvis not want Gu Mingming to accompany him? It was just that Gu Mingming was always in a good mood when she returned from the beast deity's place. So although he would feel very lonely when she fell asleep, he still hoped that she could be happier. Wabi looked at Gu Mingming with hidden bitterness. "Why don't you go visit him? If you fall asleep, we will be able to travel much faster. Otherwise, if we continue like this, I will become a dried snake when we reach Saint Nazaire." Gu Mingming knew that Wabi was speaking the truth. But she also knew that he was just worried that Snake would be too lonely and wanted her to accompany him. But Wabi clearly didn't know that she could not communicate with Snake even if she went to the messenger of the beast deity's place. She could only look at him and her other self in the parallel universe. Looking at Wabiai's increasingly dry skin and listless expression, Gu Mengmeng felt apologetic. In order to obtain the kiss of the ocean, she had dragged him along even though it was clearly not the right season. If watching a television series at the beast deity's place could make Wabiai feel better, then so be it. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath. All right, in order not to be a burden to everyone, I will go accompany my father after lunch. With that, Wabiai seemed to have been possessed by Oriton and became extremely stubborn about having lunch. Under Wabiai's various threats and promises, Gu Mengmeng and the rest's lunch was brought forward by at least 2 hours. When Gu Mengmeng finally finished her meal and was prepared to sleep in Elvis's arms, Wabiai coughed shyly beside her ear and said, "Also ask the mighty beast deity if he can send me over too." This was the second time Wabiai had mentioned this to Gu Mengmeng. It seemed like he was not being impulsive but was really considering it. Gu Mengmeng didn't want to disappoint Wabiai after giving him hope. Hence she did not reply. She patted him on the shoulder without a word. Then she closed her eyes in Elvis's arms. The white fog gradually gathered with the drowsiness. This feeling was very strange. She did not know how the beast deity sensed that she wanted to see him. Usually it would not be like this when she was sleeping. But if she went to sleep with the mentality of wanting to see the beast deity, she could see him every time. To say it was a coincidence was too much of a coincidence. The message that Wang Xiaoxin left behind clearly said that the beast deity would only guide them in the dream if there was a major deviation in their course of action. Chapter 841. Gu Mengmeng smiled sweetly. "Father, I am here to ask you something on behalf of my friend." The beast deity didn't answer Gu Mengmeng's question. He just pulled her wrist and walked deeper into the white fog. "Let me show you something first." "Mm-mm." Gu Mengmeng understood that the beast deity clearly didn't want to answer Wabiai's question. Otherwise, he wouldn't have interrupted her so obviously. So Gu Mengmeng didn't continue asking and just let the beast deity change the topic. Look, the beast deity was like a child presenting a treasure. He gently parted the white fog to reveal a patch of grass about 2 square meters. It was a very small area, but it looked so precious in the fog. There was a 2-seater bench on the small grassy ground. It was made of wood and looked like the kind of bench used in parks for people to rest on. However, it looked like it was made of exquisite materials and had a strong natural scent. There were 2 cushions made of vines on the back of the bench. Even though it was just a small area, Gu Mengmeng could smell the refreshing fragrance of the grass and her entire mood brightened up. The beast deity looked at Gu Mengmeng's reaction and smiled in satisfaction. "Your contributions to the beast world will be reflected here. And everything here will become your strength." Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity as if he was an idiot. She had no idea what he was talking about. The beast deity cleared his throat. "I told you before. Every messenger of the beast deity transmigrated to the beast world with a specific mission. Wang Xiaoxin's mission is faith while yours is hope. At first, I thought that the manifestation of hope would be a seed that would slowly grow into a towering tree with the accumulation of energy, but I didn't expect that it would be like this. Ah, my good daughter, you really surprised me. Yes, no matter how lush a tree is, how can it be compared to a grassland? If you want to talk about hope, it would be a boundless grassland filled with vitality." Gu Mengmeng held her forehead. She pointed at the patch of grass that was less than 2 square meters. "So how did this thing come out? What did I do to get this thing?" "You brought hope to others, so you gained energy." The beast deity smiled amiably, looking as if he was saying, "Our children are so promising." Gu Mengmeng could not bear to look at that baffling sense of accomplishment and pride. A person who could only be called brother at most was looking at you like a father looking at his daughter. How F*** King strange. Oh. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and tried her best not to look at the beast deity's face that could never be put together. She thought quietly. The last time he was here, this thing didn't exist. Between the last time and this time, only 2 things had happened. The mermaid clan and the giant fish clan had merged to form the new Bridges clan. Natalie and Peter had reunited. The second matter could only be considered as a private matter. Gu Mengmeng had done countless of such private matters, including Sandy, Colin, Carter and Melinda. If matchmaking others could be considered as bringing hope and accumulating strength, then why would she still be the messenger of the beast deity? She could just be a matchmaker and open a marriage agency. So, the so-called hope was referring to the merger of the 2 tribes in the sea. Chapter 842. The beast deity was the first to sit on the long bench. He placed his elbow on the armrest and supported his chin with his palm. He tilted his head and asked, "Daughter, do you want to return to your original world?" Gu Mingming's expression froze for a moment before relaxing again. What's so important about wanting to? I'm not crazy enough to use my own child to open the doors of time and space. The beast deity smiled thoughtfully. If I tell you that the doors of time and space will appear when the white fog disperses and your grassland of hope is filled with hope, what will you do? Gu Mingming frowned. Her heart tightened and she pressed her thin lips into a straight line. She looked at the beast deity with a guarded gaze. The beast deity already knew the answer from Gu Mingming's expression. He did not say anything and just patted the seat beside him. Come, sit down and watch the television. Gu Mingming sat docilely beside the beast deity. Just as he raised his hand to push the white fog away, she grabbed his wrist. If the doors of time and space open, can I choose not to enter? The beast deity smiled warmly and benevolently, just like the warm and gentle sunlight at dawn. He placed his large hand lightly on Gu Mingming's little head and said with a fatherly love, "You are the daughter of the beast deity, no one can force you to do what you don't want to do. Even me is the same. After all, there has never been a parent who could win against their own children." Gu Mingming knew that the beast deity would not lie. So if he said so, it must be so. With her heart at ease, Gu Mingming smiled. If you dare to lie to me, no one will come back to watch teen idol dramas with you in the future. Yeah. The beast deity responded softly. Then he retracted his hand and pushed the fog away. The surroundings fell into a state of silence. Only the screen-like gap in front of them was like a pair of eyes peeking into another world. It displayed scenes that were both familiar and foreign to Gu Mingming. Snake leaned against the side of the office table. His long legs were casually extended and stepped on the ground. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and glanced at the crystal name tag on the office table. CO Snake. Gu Mingming's eyes widened as she followed Snake's gaze to the crystal nameplate, then looked at Snake, who seemed to be smiling yet not. She was stunned for a moment before giving Snake a 90-degree bow. CO. Snake could not help but burst out laughing. This little guy could always surprise him. Whether it was over there or here, she always surprised him. He never seemed to be able to guess what kind of reaction she would give, and he always liked her more than he imagined. That's it? Snakel reached out his finger and knocked on Gu Mingming's work pass, saying, "In your eyes, am I such a perfunctory boss?" No. Gu Mingming shook her head in denial. Snake raised his brows and said, "So you find me difficult to get along with?" Gu Mingming shook her head even harder. No. Snake pinched Gu Mingming's chin lightly and said, "Stop shaking, it's making me dizzy." Gu Mingming was pinched till she could not move and could only reply, Don't sway. Chapter 843. Snake especially enjoyed it, teasing her and watching her flustered and helpless look. The delicate sensation from his fingertips seemed to carry a slight electric current that spread from his fingertips to his entire body. The slight numbness made him feel comfortable all over. "So, what kind of person am I in your eyes?" Gu Mingming stared blankly at Snake, thinking to herself, "If I scold my boss as a pervert on my first day of work, would I be fired?" Snake narrowed his eyes as if he had seen through Gu Mingming's inner thoughts. He added, "If I am not happy, you will be fired on the grounds of not up to the task, and you will have to pay a compensation of 100 times your salary." Gu Mingming's eyes narrowed. "Huh." Gu Mingming was shocked. Snake smiled evilly and happily. "There are 2 copies of the employment contract. You should have one in your back, right? Open page 7, paragraph 9, line 4. Take a look." Gu Mingming immediately took off her bag and flipped out the employment contract she had just signed. Following Snake's words, there was indeed such a clause. If you are not up to the task during the contract period, you will have to pay compensation of 100 times your salary for breaching the contract. A monthly salary of 4,500, 100 would be 450,000. Pleasing your boss is your most important task as a personal assistant. Snake reminded her in a very friendly manner. Of course, if he did not emphasize on the word personal, this sentence would seem to be filled with kindness. So, now look at the employment contract in your hands. Reorganize your words and answer me, what kind of person am I in your eyes? Gu Mingming shifted her gaze away from the contract with much difficulty and landed it on Snake's face. Her smile was uglier than crying. In her eyes, Snake was just an IOU with a sum of $450,000. It was a sum that she could not afford to offend. For the sake of work, conscience and whatnot, she could not care less. Boss is the most sacred and inviolable existence in this world. You make me respect you from the bottom of my heart. My respect for you is like a never-ending river, and like the overflowing yellow river that cannot be stopped. Snake poked Gu Mingming's brows, interrupting her exaggerated praise that she learned from television dramas. Aku's senior darling. Choose one. Gu Mingming tilted her head in a clueless manner. I do not wish for my identity to be exposed in school and attract unnecessary trouble. So you can't call me boss. Snake had a good reason, but actually, he just didn't like it when she addressed him like everyone else. Call was too intimate. Gu Mingming knew that she and Snake were not that close. She wasn't Taba's customer service, so she had to call everyone dear. Then, senior. Gu Mingming smiled as she completed the first mission of this strange job. Snake did not seem too satisfied. He raised his eyebrows and asked, why not Aku or my dear? Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and said, don't we still have to interact in school? It's more natural to call him senior. Snake reluctantly accepted Gu Mingming's explanation and nodded. He then pulled Gu Mingming's wrist and walked out. Where are we going? Gu Mingming asked as she jogged behind Snake. Chapter 844. The so-called dormitory was a small villa with 3 floors. It was located between the school and Monsieur. Gu Mingming stood at the entrance of the villa with a dazed expression. What's wrong? Snake stood at the entrance and used his body to block the door. With one hand in his pocket, he turned back to look at Gu Mingming, who was not coming in. Gu Mingming snapped out of her trance and said, I have worked many jobs and stayed in many employee dormitories, but none of them looked like this. I went to primary school, don't lie to me. Snake chuckled. Of course he knew which jobs she had worked and which employee dormitories she had stayed in. He even knew when her roommate, 7th Auntie's cat, had been sterilized. So? Snake asked softly. Gu Mingming shook her head and took a step back. This is definitely not the employee dormitory. I'm not going in. Gu Mingming's guarded look made Snake frown. He did not like her distant look. His Tuming was most suited for a heartless smile. This is your dormitory. You can only stay here. Snake's voice was slightly cold. Gu Mingming asked, there are other employees staying here? Snake took a deep breath and nodded. Gu Mingming was skeptical. She knew that Monsieur was a multinational company and had always treated its employees well. But it should not be so good to the extent that it used a villa as a dormitory for its employees, right? Snake clenched his teeth. Page 7, paragraph 9, line 4. Gu Mingming's head went numb. She rushed in without another word. Evil capitalism. Using money to talk about this again. But what else could she do? She blamed herself for not reading the contract carefully when she signed it. She had been thinking that there was a free lunch falling from the sky. Who knew that it was a trap in a trap? She had sold herself out with her own hands. Who could she blame? She did not even have a place to stay now. Even eating was a problem. Where could she find the $450,000 to compensate Monsieur? Snake's expression was rather helpless. She had obediently given in and listened to him. But it was because of money and not because of him. If this girl really managed to gather enough money one day, would she throw the money away and leave without another word? Wasn't 100 times too little? It should have been 10,000 times, no, it should have been 1,000,000,000 times. However, when he thought about how she stayed by his side because she couldn't pay the penalty fee, why did he feel so awkward? Gu Mingming surveyed the interior design of the villa. This was definitely not a decoration that a dormitory should have. Every detail reeked of extravagance. Gu Mingming even felt that she might not be able to afford the footpad at the entrance with a month's salary. Didn't you say that there are other employees living here? Where? Gu Mingming turned to ask Snake. Snake placed his hand on Gu Mingming's shoulder casually and naturally. He said nonchalantly, I am the CEO of Monsieur. Although I am the boss, I am also one of the employees. As if struck by lightning, Gu Mingming was petrified on the spot. Snake hugged her and walked in while he sat on the sofa. He pulled back his arm and Gu Mingming fell into his arms. This fall brought Gu Mingming back to her senses. She struggled to stand up and said, although I lack money, I reject all immoral transactions. If you insist on using the employment contract to sue me for breach of contract, then go ahead. I'd rather go to jail than sell myself. Chapter 845. Gu Mingming's face flushed red. Everything you are thinking of now is an immoral transaction. Snake nodded with a look of realization. Then he said thoughtfully, so cooking is an immoral transaction. So you are planning to take the salary of a special assistant, without doing any work, right? Cooking? Gu Mingming was stunned. Snake nodded. What else did you think I was going to do? Gu Mingming's face turned even redder. She really wanted to kill herself. Who was he? The great CEO of Monsieur. Not to mention how many socialites were trying to get close to him. Just based on how popular he was in S university, as long as he was willing to open one of his arms, the class bell, the school bell and the school bell who would pounce on him would break his bones. Why would such a person need to have unspoken rules with her? TSK she was thinking too much. It was quite awkward to think too highly of one's feelings. But Gu Mingming was thick-skinned. She got used to it after being embarrassed for so long. Chuckling, Gu Mingming asked, "Then what do you want to eat, senior? I will make it for you." Snake used his chin to point at the open kitchen. "Anything. Eat whatever you have. I'm not picky." "All right." This was good news. Gu Mingming headed straight into the kitchen. She opened up the three-door fridge one by one. It was filled with everything and they were arranged in an orderly manner. It was the kind of neatness that even an obsessive-compulsive person would find comforting. Gu Mingming took out the ingredients from the fridge and made a simple stir-fried asparagus, scrambled eggs and tomatoes. Then she steamed a mandarin fish. Then she made a bean sprout with soup. 3 dishes and 1 soup. Going to the countryside. After Gu Mingming finished setting the table, she took off her apron and put it away. When she returned to the table, she saw that Snake had already sat down quietly. He did not touch his chopsticks and just looked at her quietly. It was obvious that he was waiting for her to eat together. How long had it been since someone waited for her to eat together? Gu Mingming's heart was touched for some reason. Sitting opposite Snake, Gu Mingming picked up a piece of fish and placed it in his bowl. "Senior, try this fish and see if you like it." The corners of Snake's lips curved upwards gently as he said, "I like it." Then he sent the fish into his mouth. Gu Mingming clicked her tongue and said, "You're just being perfunctory. You like it even before eating?" Snake fixed his gaze on Gu Mingming and said gently, "I like everything you give me." Gu Mingming choked on her rice and coughed violently. Her face flushed red, not knowing if it was because of her coughing or because she was shy. She waved her hands and said, "Let's eat, let's not talk while eating." Snake didn't say anything more and just started eating quietly. Not a single piece of leftover food was left. Gu Mingming was washing the dishes in the kitchen while Snake stood at the door and watched. A warmth and happiness that he had never felt before spread from his eyes. "Tuming, so this is how it feels to have you in my life. Even though it's only the first day, I seem to be addicted." Gu Mingming finished washing the dishes and wiped her hands dry. She turned around and was shocked to see Snake standing at the door. She asked, "Why are you standing here?" Snake held onto Gu Mingming's wrist and led her to the second floor. He pushed open the door to a room and said, "Here, your room." Chapter 846. Snake chuckled and inched closer to Gu Mingming. His lips stopped at the tip of her nose. "Of course, if you don't like it, you can stay in my room." "I don't mind." "I mind," Gu Mingming said and stepped into the room. Then she swung her arm and closed the door. Looking at the door at the tip of his nose, Snake narrowed his eyes. If he directly asked her to stay with him, she would definitely run away. So he prepared this room for her. But he still preferred the days in the cave. Being able to see her whenever he looked up always made his mood good. Thinking about this, he felt that this door was an eyesore. On the other side of the door, Gu Mingming held her uncontrollable little heart as she squatted on the floor. She took in deep breaths. Was she being seduced? Was she being seduced? Gu Mingming rushed into the washroom and washed her face with cold water to cool down. She patted her face to wake herself up. Although there was no such thing as a match in this era, the gap between the two of them was as big as the Milky Way. In that case, they should not have any strange thoughts from the beginning. After all, it was not easy to be the cowherd and the weaving maid. Sitting back on the bed, Gu Mingming took out the 20-page employment contract from her backpack and started reading it carefully. Only then did she realize that other than the first 3 pages, which were normal rules and regulations, from the 4th page onwards, there were some strange contents. The more Gu Mingming read, the more her head hurt. She felt that she might not have signed an employment contract. This was a contract to sell her body. Gu Mingming felt that even the senior servants in the olden days had more rights than her. Take care of the CEO's 3 meals and daily necessities. Follow the CEO's wishes. Carry out the tasks assigned by the CEO unconditionally and complete them excellently. Not allowed to leave her post under any circumstances. Not allowed to do things that the CEO did not allow. What did it mean to not allow things that the CEO did not allow to happen? Then came the Evilist 794, page 7, paragraph 9, line 4. Gu Mingming leaned backwards and threw herself onto the bed with a loud roar. Evil capitalism. Knock knock knock. Someone knocked on the door. Gu Mingming did not need to ask to know who it was. Patting her face, her gaze landed on the humiliating treaty of 794. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming opened the door with a smile. "Senior, what's the matter?" Snakel's gloomy mood, which was affected by this broken door, completely dissipated when he saw Gu Mingming's obviously fawning smile. She used to look at him like this, smiling with a hint of flattery but not pretentiousness. Yeah, the feeling of being fawned upon was pretty good. Snake strode straight into Gu Mingming's room, then pushed the door open and entered the washroom. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded as she watched Snake walk into the toilet. She was speechless the entire time. "Don't tell me you're here to borrow the toilet. Is this the only room in this villa with a toilet? Tu Ming, come here." Snake stuck half his body out of the washroom. Gu Mingming did not know why Snake wanted to call her Tu Ming, but there were only two of them here. If Snake could not see some indescribable things, he would definitely call her that. Sweeping her gaze across the scattered contracts on the bed, Gu Mingming smiled brightly at the 450,000. Coming, aside from the topic, today's updates are over. Yeah. Recently my QQ reading ratings have dropped quite a bit. My darlings, can you help me leave a message in the comments section and give me a 5-star rating? Please, please. Oh, also a notice, 259 and 274 are the most popular sections. Darlings with a fan value of 800, please enter the verification group as soon as possible to verify your fan value, then transfer to the VIP group to wait for the benefits. Group number 4927792773. Then the third thing. I announced today's updates are over. See you tomorrow. Chapter 847. Shave my beard for me. Snake handed the razor to Gu Mingming with a serious expression. Gu Mingming held onto the razor with a conflicted expression. She had never touched such a thing in her entire life and it looked rather sharp. What if she scratched his face? How much would she have to pay for it? "You're not willing?" Snake looked down, his gaze cold. Gu Mingming could almost feel that he was about to blurt out the 7th page, 9th paragraph, 4th line. No, it's just that senior is too tall, I can't reach it." Gu Mingming measured herself. Actually, it was not that she couldn't reach it, it was just that it was a little strenuous. Snake's large hand circled around Gu Mingming's waist, then he lifted her up lightly, making her sit on the sink. Snake's muscular waist was wedged between Gu Mingming's legs, his upper body leaning forward slightly, inching closer to Gu Mingming, saying, "Here, this height is just right." Gu Mingming instinctively pushed Snake, saying, Don't, senior, don't come so close to me." Snake chuckled as if he didn't understand Gu Mingming's shyness, saying, "If I don't come close, how are you going to shave?" Gu Mingming's face was so red that her breathing became uneven. She said softly, "Senior, I really don't know how to use a razor. How about I teach you?" As Snake said, his large hand covered Gu Mingming's small hand, holding the razor and moving it around his face. The white bubbles faded away in a rhythmic pattern, revealing a devilishly bewitching face right in front of Gu Mingming without any concealment. "Is this your first time shaving a man?" Snake asked despite knowing the answer. Gu Mingming blushed and nodded. "Good." Snake planted a light kiss on her forehead before pulling away in vain. He threw the razor into the basin and washed his face with clean water. Then he pulled Gu Mingming's little hand over and poured the toner onto it. Then he looked up at Gu Mingming with squinted eyes. Gu Mingming's blush deepened. She knew he was asking her to apply toner for him, but why did he look like he was asking for a kiss? Clearing her throat, Gu Mingming instinctively pulled her body backwards. Then she clapped her hands lightly to evenly distribute the toner before applying it on his face. Her movements were gentle and slow. She could feel the warmth of his skin from her palms every time she rubbed it on his face. Gu Mingming felt that if she opened her mouth, her heart would jump out from her throat. But Snake maintained his smile the entire time. After the toner was applied, he applied essence and face cream. After that, he carried Gu Mingming down from the sink and held her hand as they walked out. Where are we going now?" Gu Mingming stumbled behind Snake and asked. Snake chuckled. "I'll bring you to buy some clothes." "No need, I don't lack clothes." Snake stood still and turned around. He gently lifted Gu Mingming's chin and looked down at her, saying, "You lack the clothes I bought for you." Gu Mingming was stunned. Gu Mingming pressed the hand that was not being held onto her chest out of reflex. "Damn it. My young girl's heart." Gu Mingming's small actions pleased Snake. He loved every moment when her heart moved for him. Chapter 848. The white fog gradually returned and the empty space that was the size of a home theater was once again covered. Gu Mingming stood up from the long bench and stretched lazily. She turned to look at the beast deity and said, "Booking the whole place to go shopping? Snake is really inhumane." The beast deity chuckled and said, "Because he also has your memories in his mind. He knows that you especially like to read those novels with domineering characters, so he recorded down every plot you liked and used the past 18 years to set them up one by one, waiting for you to realize all your dreams one by one after meeting you." Novels with domineering characters. I don't even remember it myself. Gu Mingming lowered her head and chuckled. She was indeed a fan of novels in the past and often read all kinds of domineering novels during her free time. But after transmigrating to the beast world, she seemed to have never thought about the content and plot of those novels again. But Snake, who had merged with her memories, remembered every piece of information in her mind that even she herself had forgotten. To him, every second that he waited for her was a long torment. He had to do something related to her to calm his crazy thoughts, otherwise, there was a high possibility that he would rush into some hospital and kidnap some newborn baby girl. But in that case he would only get a fake that looked exactly like Gu Mingming. A Gu Mingming without those memories was not the complete Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming did not continue asking about Snake, nor did she mention that Wabiai wanted to send him to fight with Snake. She just rolled her eyes and asked another question: "Stray beasts, do they still have a chance to mate?" Wabiai's expression changed. The beast deity also stood up and stood beside Gu Mingming asking, "Are you referring to Elvis's parents?" Gu Mingming nodded and did not deny it. The beast deity's gaze carried a hint of probing as he asked, "You already know what they did to Elvis, but aren't you angry? You still want to help them?" Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "It's not that I'm not angry, it's just that compared to being angry, my heart aches more for my man. Killing one's parents may not be a strange thing in the beast world, but in our world, it's too depraved. I don't want my man to bear such a nightmare. Moreover," Gu Mingming lowered her head and chuckled, "Lee's parents are already dead. My parents, don't mention them. If possible, I want to give Elvis a complete family. This is selfish, and also true." The beast deity remained silent for a moment before smiling. He rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and said, "Do you know? You're so different from Wang Xiaoxing." Gu Mingming had inherited Snake's memories from his father, so she had a certain level of understanding of Wang Xiaoxing's way of doing things. She was a stickler for iron-fisted policies, and she was very clear about rewards and punishments. He strongly advocated, a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Repaying evil with good, how to repay good. Gu Mingming could not say that Wang Xiaoxing's way of doing things was wrong, but everyone had their own way of living and their own obsession. Wang Xiaoxing desperately wanted to go back, but perhaps her obsession was with family. Gu Mingming smiled and said, "We are originally different. Everyone in this world is unique, isn't that so?" Chapter 850. He didn't love her and would never love her. He had no ulterior motives towards her, but Snake was the key that linked them together. No matter who it was, the fact that Wabiai had gone through fire and water for her would never change, right? Wabiai's hair stood on end from Gu Mingming's stare. He slapped her head and frowned. "What are you laughing at?" Gu Mingming shrugged. "I am laughing at you. So you are a fart?" Wabiai was choked by Gu Mingming. He rolled his eyes. "I really don't understand why he would like you. His taste is really problematic." Gu Mingming lifted her chin. "Your old partner is Ellie. I don't think your taste is any better than Snake's." Wabiai snorted in disdain. "What partner? She's just a tool for me to level up. She has some use for me. I don't like her and it doesn't prove my taste." Gu Mingming gave him a, "I don't believe you" expression. "Then tell me, what kind of females do you like? I will help you pimp one another day." Wabiai snorted. "What do I like? Females are all troublesome. Don't do unnecessary things and hinder me from improving my skills." Gu Mingming laughed out loud. "So you really like Snake?" Wabiai was first taken aback. Then he roared in anger. "I treat you as a friend but you treat me as a pervert?" Gu Mingming said with a serious face. You are not right to say that. You are discriminating. Everyone has the right to choose their own partner. Some people just happen to like someone of the same gender. How is that a pervert?" Wabiai was taken aback by Gu Mingming's words. He was naturally no match for Gu Mingming in terms of eloquence. After a long while he still couldn't come up with a proper reply. In the end he just harumphed loudly. It seemed like he was really angry. Gu Mingming didn't continue to tease him. She just patted his shoulder. I really asked my father about sending you to meet him, but he didn't reply to me. It was obvious he wasn't willing to tell me. But don't worry, I will remember this. In the future, I will help you ask my father every time I go back. Maybe one day he'll be annoyed by my questions and tell me. Only then did Wabiai's expression lighten. He cleared his throat and said, If you annoy him, will there be trouble? Gu Mingming shrugged. Who knows? I don't know him that well, but I've never seen him lose his temper before. But at least he won't kill me. After all, he still wants me to watch TV with him. Wabiai nodded and said, I will remember this favor. Whether or not it succeeds, I will thank you. Gu Mingming placed a hand on Wabiai's shoulder and smiled. We are brothers, there's no need to thank me. Gu Mingming was now clear about her relationship with Wabiai and felt more comfortable interacting with him. But Wabiai was clearly not used to Gu Mingming's sudden change in style. He shifted his shoulders unnaturally and frowned when he saw that he couldn't shake off Gu Mingming's hand. Can you not touch me when you are talking? With that, Wabiai walked out of the cave without turning back, disappearing from Gu Mingming's line of sight. Gu Mingming thought that she would shed a tear or two to act pretentious, but she did not. Perhaps Snake's memory had an effect on her emotions? This was the first time Gu Mingming felt the separation between men, so this was how it felt. Feeling but not hurt. If there was wine, she should toast him. He whispered into Gu Mingming's ears, Leah and I will definitely settle this well. Don't worry, leave it to us. Gu Mingming's heart was filled with guilt. Gu Mingming nodded. Yeah, I know. I believe in you.